hard to serve us this evening. It was a great meal, and we want to say thank you to all of you. Our managers in the back. Is this about the right volume? I know the people in front are going to go, no, it's way too loud. But I think for the people in the back, can you hear all right back there? If you can't hear me, say hi. Okay. Well, welcome. We're very glad that you made it out here for this great event this evening. And we're going to start out by meeting a young woman who is in charge over there at the Dakota Hope Clinic. April Braun began her duties just recently on the 1st of September. She is one of the founding members of Dakota Hope Clinic and has been vice president and on the board of directors for some 4 years. She is from Almont. All right, let's hear it for Almont. April has a bachelor's degree in nursing from the University of Mary. She worked in Bismarck at the neonatal intensive care unit at St. Alexius Hospital, and she was a nurse manager at First Choice Clinic, a pregnancy center that is very similar to the Dakota Hope Clinic. This is probably something I'm doing wrong. April and her husband Jesse moved their family to Minot in 2011. They have 6 children. They are members of Our Redeemer's Lutheran Brethren Church. And April Braun is here to bring us a message this evening. April? I'm going to put this mic up for you. You're going to have to hold it, all right? Well, then use that.
Hello. This is our 5th fundraising banquet, and this is a sold-out crowd. Every year, I am humbled by God's work. Every year, I'm humbled by God's work through you and our many supporters. Without you, none of this would be possible. Along with your support, we also have many people behind the scenes making sure that not only this banquet is a success, but the clinic itself is a reality. I want to thank our banquet committee for their tireless efforts to ensure everything runs as smoothly as possible tonight. I also want to thank our many volunteers, our staff nurses, Christy Fanick and Stephanie Anderson. Would you two please stand? I also want to thank our medical directors, Dr. Kevin Franks, Dr. Thompson Kamba, and Dr. David Billings. I believe Dr. Billings is here tonight. Would you please stand? Thank you. And last but not least, our board of directors. Directors, please stand. Marlis Fisher, Todd Ringen, Tim Knutson, Deborah Folden, Pamela Brooks, Marcia Rogney, Tony Watrud, and Bob Paulson. I also want to acknowledge Nadia Smetana. Nadia, please stand, Nadia. Wherever she's at. There she is, she's in the corner. Nadia is a founding member of the board and former president. She served as interim director earlier this year and now serves as our assistant director. We're very thankful to have her on staff. With a great staff, board, and volunteers, we are continuing the work that we have begun and look forward to expanding our services and our outreach. Let me tell you briefly about what we're doing and what we hope to do. I believe that all of us here desire to live in a world where abortion is unthinkable, where no man or woman would see ending the life of their child as their only option. There's so many factors that contribute to this way of thinking. Poverty, cultural barriers, abandonment, crime, and the list goes on. Unfortunately, we can't completely remove these or any other obstacles in the lives of our clients. But we can offer hope. We can offer a listening ear and a place for them to take a breath and think out loud. Our clients can slowly unpack their fear, failure, regret, and pain. Our nurses, Christy and Stephanie, serve as the hands and feet of Jesus to each and every client that walks through the door of Dakota Hope Clinic. Yes, it's hard and sad, but it's also beautiful. Beautiful to see God working in the lives of our clients, to see the little hearts beating on the ultrasound and the heart of his mother changing in that moment, opening up to the possibility of offering life to her child. Seeing her begin to evoke confidence as she knocks down her barriers one by one. Suddenly, all of life's hurdles, the things telling her you can't, don't sound so loud to her. That is what is happening behind the doors of Dakota Clinic. With the nurses by their side, our clients conquer their fears, their shame, their I can'ts. They're able to see for the first time that they can overcome. That is hope, and you are making hope happen with your generosity. With this love and support made possible by you, I'm happy to report that at least 87% of our clients who are at risk for abortion have chosen life. 87%. As we look at expanding our services and our outreach, your support is needed now more than ever. We're developing our men's program, a way to reach men with a message of life, encouragement, and respect, giving them the backing to take responsibility, to advocate for the life of their child, and to give them the tools to be the father they want to be. This is crucial because according to Life Choices, 85% of women who abort say that they would have chosen differently if the father of the baby would have been more involved. Our goal is to have a men's advocate hired on staff, and with your generosity, we believe this will happen. Also, we have a message of truth that we desire all young people to hear. We aspire to teach them God's plan for their sexuality. This is a massive undertaking, and we're working on this as one of our long-term goals. And lastly, we ask for your help. Last year, we asked for your help in getting our sexually transmitted disease program up and running. Let me introduce to you our nurse manager, Christy Fanik. She's going to give you an update on that and more. Christy?
Good evening, and just want to thank each of you again for taking time out. I know a lot of you have busy schedules, so we do appreciate you coming. Just to follow up with what April mentioned, we are up and running with the STD program. This program offers clients testing, treatment, education, as well as a chance to make a fresh start. We can, along with this program, help them to understand what true love is, signs of a healthy relationship or not so healthy relationship, and also what to look for in a future husband or a future wife. And why is this such an important addition to our clinic? The biggest reason is this just gives us another chance to reach our target population. Some of them may be pregnant when they come to be tested for STDs, or they may become pregnant in the future. Maybe they have a friend who becomes pregnant and they can tell them about us and already are familiar with our services. And they're more likely to come and see us first, and that is ultimately our goal. I just also wanted to quickly review our clinic services for any of you who maybe are not as familiar with us. The first thing is, each person that walks through our doors deserves love, kindness, and compassion. It doesn't matter if they're happy, mad, sad, anxious. Everyone needs and deserves to be treated with love, kindness, and compassion. One of my favorite quotes is, "A hungry man has no ears." So people aren't unable to hear a word we are saying if they feel empty and unloved. We do this by treating them with respect, helping them to find answers to questions they have, providing them with medical services, including a free pregnancy test and a free ultrasound, helping them to find medical care for their pregnancy, referring them to speak with an adoption specialist, and also offering them to come back and talk with us no matter what choice they make. The second thing they need is time to process all this information, time for someone to listen to their whole story and acknowledge that many very difficult situations many of these are facing. Time to talk about what their life may look like with a baby, what their partner or family think, what their life might look like if they choose adoption, and the different ways adoption can work out, and also what their life may be in the future without that child. If they were to choose that option, would they wish that they had made a different decision? Some of our appointments are 30 minutes, and some are 2 hours, and we are fortunate that we can make this work in our clinic schedule. And they need material, practical things. We provide this through our Earn While You Learn program, where they come to the clinic, each person, with individualized appointments. and they receive material support through the Baby Boutique, and then we can refer them to other community support programs that are available to them. And the last thing that they need to know, they need to know that they are worthy, and God has amazing plans for them. They need someone to rejoice with them, to celebrate the life that is growing within them, and the potential that both they and that child have. And I just would challenge all of you, if you have new mothers, single moms, pregnant women in your church, in your community, you can also show them love, kindness, give them your time, celebrate and support them. Stephanie and I have had the great privilege of meeting a very special woman that came to our clinic, and she has graciously agreed to share her story in the hopes of being an inspiration to others, as well as to help us show what does go on at the clinic. So we just have a short video we're going to show.
August the 12th, 2015, was my very first time going to the Dakota Hope Clinic. The reason that I went to the clinic is because I was pregnant, and I didn't necessarily know that I wanted my child, and I wanted to first verify my pregnancy. I had taken 2 pregnancy tests at home, and I did not have insurance or the means to go to the doctor's office and take a pregnancy test. When I arrived at the office, the first person that I encountered there was Stephanie Anderson. She basically talked to me about the services that they offered there, and she did the pregnancy test. It did come back positive. My next part of my mission for going to the clinic was then to find out information about abortion. When I began to ask her questions about abortion, she began to share with me her testimony. It called me into order. It began to remind me who I was in God. I am a Christian woman, but I was at the lowest point in my life that I possibly could have been. I was broken. I didn't think that I was capable of taking care of another child. I felt alone. And the father of my child told me I was not capable of raising another child. He told me that he wouldn't be there. I'm already a single mom, and I didn't think that I could do it with a second child. But as she began to share with me her testimony, God began to really work on my heart. He began to let me know that I am very capable of taking care of another human life. When I left her, I still did call the Red River Clinic in Fargo, and I made an appointment. I've had a very short window to where I could do an abortion. And God just really began to work on me, and I could not do it. I had this song that I would listen to over and over again called Beautiful Life. And it was about a girl just like me. And the song basically encouraged me to keep my child. Everything that Stephanie had said to me, it came back to me in song. And I decided to keep my baby. Almost now, the anniversary to the date, September the 11th, 2015. I finally had insurance, and I could finally go see an obstetrician. He began to listen for my baby's heartbeat. And he could not find my baby's heartbeat. He set me down for an ultrasound, and I just began to pray. God, please give me my child. Allow my child to be alive. Make the heartbeat. Let him be wrong. At that point, I just wanted somebody to talk to, somebody to pray with me, and I called the Dakota Home Clinic. I had grown close to them. And I asked them to pray for me, but the nurse came and she called me back before they could pray for me, so they said they would be praying for me and with me. In that visit, I ultimately found out that my child had passed away. It was Friday, September the 11th of 2015. I've never been at such a broken point in my life. To me, that was rock bottom. I began to pray. I began to cry out to God. I began to apologize for everything that I've done, but not allowing Him to work the work in my life that He had begun earlier that year. And that night, I restored my life back to God. Then I lost my baby the natural way. I called Dakota Hope Clinic and I let them know what had happened. And they began to, those wonderful women there began to talk to me and show me grief videos and gave me material to read. That was my grief counseling. Having that friendly face, that kind ear, Christy and Stephanie, just being able to talk to them and them listen to me and be able to relate with what I was going through, being willing to pray with me, even if I needed that. I would go by there a lot just to see their friendly faces, just to talk to them. It wasn't just going there to get a service. It wasn't there just going there to take a pregnancy test. It wasn't just showing up and meeting with them to do the parenting classes and the videos, and then ultimately the grief counseling. It was going there because they ultimately are a small family, a small group that loves and cares about each and every person that walks in that door. And they have the love of God down on the inside of them. And they do not just leave you after they perform the service. They check up on you. They watch over you. They pray for you. And I felt like they were a small family that I could go and confide in. I made friends there. I'm doing wonderful now. It's almost the anniversary of the day that I lost my child. And that's okay. I know that God he made a choice for my child, and He knew the direction for my life that He wanted to go in. I'm being a better mother to my child, to my daughter that I have. I don't know that I would have. I made it there because of God first, but I don't know if I would have made it that far without the love and support of each and every one of those women that work at the Dakota Hope Clinic.
And we do, Lamika is here. We just ask if stand to be acknowledged.
I got nothing after that. Well, we are going to, there were a couple of things that struck me there. Earlier, we heard the number 7 out of 8, I think it was, 87%. That's pretty amazing. when you think about the work that they're involved in. And then when you hear her story, and there were so many things in that story that were amazing to me, but I picked out one thing that I really noticed, and toward the end she said that she made friends there. Isn't that something? I thought that was moving. Congratulations and good luck. Now I would like to introduce our guest speaker, Abby Johnson. Abby's life changed on October 6th, 2009. That was the day she resigned from the largest abortion corporation in the nation, Planned Parenthood. That simple act has become a national news story since she experienced a change of heart while participating in an ultrasound-guided abortion procedure. Today, she travels the country, she shares her story, and motivates others to continue the pro-life fight. Her story has been featured on Fox News, on the Mike Huckabee Show, on the O'Reilly Factor, Focus on the Family, and many print and other media programs. Help me welcome our guest this evening, Abby Johnson.
Well, I am from Texas, so howdy. It is so good to be here with all of you. Is this a thing people say, why not, my not? Is that like a thing? Okay, because somebody said, I don't know. I said something about going to Minot. One of my friends said, you're going to why not, Minot? And I was like, I guess. Why not? So it's really good to be here with all of you tonight. I love the work that's happening here at Dakota Hope. And like I said, I am from, let me tell you something funny. I thought you pronounced the name of Minot Minot. I made you all very fancy and French. And so I was talking to somebody. I was talking to the person that books my travel, and I said, yes, and I go to Minot. And she's like, you go where? I'm like, Minot. She's like, it's Minot, and you might want to get that right before you go. So anyway, I am from Texas. I live in Austin, Texas. I am married, and we have 5 children. Oh, I know. Yeah. Yep. We have 4 boys and 1 girl. Our daughter is 9, and our 4 boys are 1, 2, 3, and 4. We are crazy. I tell people we lost all self-control 4 years ago. Interestingly enough, that actually correlates to the time that we joined the Catholic Church. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it or not, but those Catholics. I'm actually a natural family planning instructor. I hear it works if you use it. We clearly wouldn't know. I have no more clients. Nobody trusts me. So, anyway. So our youngest sons are actually 6 months apart, and we are fast, but we're not quite that fast. Our youngest son was actually gifted to us through adoption. And so, funny story, like funny now, one of those things. Okay, so I was in Atlanta speaking for a pregnancy center, and I'm in this Facebook group of about 30 women. We're all very, very close friends. My best friend lives in Maryland, and she is a sign language interpreter and interprets for the deaf community in her church. There's a large deaf community in Maryland because Gallaudet University is there, and that's the only deaf university in the country. So there's a large deaf community there. And so, anyway, so my friend was interpreting at her church. She became friends with this gal who was pregnant. She was married. She had 3 other children. But she confided in her that she was actually pregnant not by her husband, but that she was a victim of a very violent sexual assault. And so she went to some of her family, she went to many of her friends, went to people in the church, and, you know, they all looked at her and said, well, this is the one time that abortion's okay, right? This is the exception to abortion, to being pro-life, really. This is the exception to being pro-life, those cases of rape. And so, but she very bravely looked at them and said, look, it's either a baby all the time or it's a baby none of the time. And so she made an adoption plan for her son, and she had found a family, and 2 weeks before her due date, she got an email from the family that said, you know, we've decided that since there's a possibility that your baby could also be deaf, we don't want him. Because, you know, you always know what you're going to get when you have your own biological children. Well, a little slow on the uptake there. Okay, so then there was another family that was called, but the baby was biracial, and they wanted a white baby that looked like them. I didn't even know those types of people still existed, but they do, and so they were not a fit. And so my friend posts in this Facebook group, hey, you know, we've been praying for this woman. It's a very difficult situation. So here's the deal. You know, if anybody knows anybody that would be interested in adopting this baby, let me know. He's coming in 2 weeks. And, you know, I don't know why I did it, but, you know, I saw it pop up, and I was like, we will. So my friend called me immediately and was like, are you crazy? Because Carter, our youngest son at the time, was only 6 months old. And I was like, yeah, man, we have so many babies right now. Like, throwing in another one is not a big deal. And I haven't slept in like 4 years. So it's fine. Like, so she was like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to call this mom. And I was like, great, do that. So I hung up the phone, and I thought to myself, I should definitely call my husband. What I really thought was, can I just send this in a text? I thought, no, I think this warrants a phone call. So I called him. He was sort of mad. I don't know if mad's the right word. He was actually like more panicky because, see, he's a stay-at-home dad. So this really affects him more than me, actually. I brought you home a baby. See you later. So he didn't talk to me for a couple days, and then he finally called me, and he said, you know, he said, I've been writing a pros and cons list. Because he's a man. And he said, you know, every time I think of a reason that this is crazy and we absolutely should not do this, I look into our future and that little boy is there. And he said, you know, I think this is what we have to do. I think this is what we're supposed to do. And I was like, I am so glad you're on board, because the lady doing the home study is coming tomorrow. So, and if you know anything about adoption, you know that like, it's a long process, right? Sometimes it takes, 4 to 6 months for people to get everything done they need to do. You get a home study, FBI clearance, fingerprints, background check, all this kind of stuff, right? We got it done in 2 weeks. That in itself is a miracle. And so we were there. Our son was born. It was really beautiful. And so then we had to decide what we were going to name him. And so we always name our kid, like I said, we're Catholic, so we always name our kid a family name and a saint name. And so I went online to like saints.com or something. And really. And I knew I wanted to name him something, a name that started with the letter J, because his mom's name started with J, and all of her other children their names started with J. So we wanted to honor her in that way. So I clicked on J, which, by the way, is the easiest way to name your child. Just pick a letter and stick with it. So I was going down the list, and nothing was really sticking out to me. I got to the end, and I saw St. Jude. Now, if you know anything about St. Jude is a patron saint of impossible or desperate causes. And I thought, oh, that's the perfect name, because his mom, up against all of these roadblocks and obstacles, and she continued to push forward and choose life for him. When she went to people that she loved and she said, look, I'm pregnant with this baby, what do I do? And they told her to have an abortion. She courageously continued to choose life for him. When she went to her local pregnancy center and they asked her, are you considering an abortion? And she said, no, I would never have an abortion. And they said, well, we only help women who are considering having an abortion, so we can't help you. And even in the face of the rejection of the actual pro-life movement, she continued to choose life for him. She chose life for him every day. Even when he was rejected by the family that was supposed to love him and care for him, she still continued to choose life for him against all odds, against what may have at sometimes seemed impossible or desperate. And so his name is Jude, and I think about Jude, I think about his life, I recognize what a miracle it is that he is with us. I realize what a gift that is, but to be perfectly honest with you, with the abortion rate in our country like it is today, 1 in 3 women having abortions, I realize that truly any child that is born in today's society is a miracle. Now, I would love to tell you that I've always stood up here and defended life. That's not true. I worked for Planned Parenthood for 8 years. I was the director of one of their abortion clinics. I got involved with Planned Parenthood as a college kid. I went to Texas A&M University. Not one fan, all right? And thank you for that. And you could have faked it. So anyway, thank you. We're all fans. And so anyway, that is where I went to school. And I was walking around campus. I saw this woman who was with Planned Parenthood. And look, I tell people, wherever there are vulnerable women, so is Planned Parenthood. And you better believe that there are tens of thousands of vulnerable women across college campuses in the United States, and Planned Parenthood is right there with them. And she was there to, certainly try to market to patients, potential patients, but for that day, she was really looking for people to volunteer and to possibly come on staff. And I didn't know anything about Planned Parenthood. I grew up in a pro-life home. But we didn't sit around and talk about abortion at the dinner table. I didn't know the ins and outs of the pro-life movement. I didn't know the science. I didn't know the logic. It was something that we said, but it wasn't how we lived. And so, I tell people, if you would have put me in a debate with someone who was pro-choice, I would have lost. I even remember in high school saying I was pro-life, but I was just saying what my parents said. It wasn't something I was passionate about. And so when this woman started asking me what I knew about Planned Parenthood, I knew nothing. I honestly knew nothing about them. I don't even know if I had heard the name Planned Parenthood before. until that moment. I'd never been inside of a Planned Parenthood, and she started telling me that without Planned Parenthood, low-income women have nowhere else to go for health care. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know the plight of a low-income, uninsured, underinsured woman. I've always been very fortunate to have health care easily accessible to me if I needed it. So when she told me this, I believed her. I didn't have any reason not to. I didn't know it was a blatant lie. I did know that currently in the United States there's about 700 Planned Parenthood clinics compared to over 13,000 federally qualified health centers that provide comprehensive health care for men, women, and children. That 13,000 does not include rural public health systems, hospital health systems, county health departments. It doesn't include the over 2,000 pregnancy resource centers that provide some medical care to women. And it doesn't include the tens of thousands of private physicians who accept government subsidy programs like Medicaid in their offices. So we're talking about 700 Planned Parenthood providers compared to tens of thousands of facilities. But Planned Parenthood is the only place women can go. They've said it so much to the population that now society believes it. Because when you say a lie enough, people begin to believe what you're saying. She asked me what I thought about abortion. I told her, I was raised pro-life. And she said, that's great. She, pro-life people, they're good people. They're just sort of misguided. You guys. So, they don't see the big picture. They don't understand that without safe and legal abortion, women are going to be forced to go where? The back alleys, right? And that would be terrible. That would be so scary. And women would just be falling out, dying all over the place from these illegal abortions, And what? First, these pro-life people, they want to take away our rights to our bodies, to do with them what we will. And then what's next? Then what's the next right they're going to take away? What they're going to tell us we can't vote anymore? And then what? Then women can't wear pants. And I thought, well, I like pants. So I signed up immediately. See, it's what I didn't know about the abortion industry. It's what I didn't know about Planned Parenthood. That's what led me in their doors. See, when she told me that without access to safe and legal abortion, we were going to be dying from these back alley abortions, what I didn't know was that what happened in these supposed back alley abortions is no different than what takes place today inside of these supposed safe and legal clinics. In fact, many of the doctors who currently perform abortions in the United States were the same doctors performing illegal abortions before Roe v. Wade. So they weren't safe then, but now they are? That doesn't even make sense. She told me that at Planned Parenthood, we were there to empower women, to liberate women. I didn't know that empowerment and that liberation would mean performing abortions on girls as young as 10 years old. I didn't know that it would mean going into public and private school systems and teaching graphic sex education to children starting in kindergarten. That's what I didn't know. And I submit to you today that it is what the majority of women in our society do not know about the abortion industry that leads them in the doors of these clinics. It's what they don't know about the industry. It's what they don't know about their bodies. It's what they don't know about true sexuality. It's what they don't know about God. That's what leads them in the doors of these clinics. And people ask me all the time, Abby, how is it that you went from, being this good Christian kid? I was a pretty good kid. I didn't get in too much trouble my parents found out about. How is it that you went from being that kid to being a person who ran an abortion clinic? How is it that you went from being that person to being a person who laid on an abortion clinic table, not once but twice, to take the lives of my own children through abortion? Like, Abby, how did that happen? I don't really have a just a striking sort of silver bullet answer for you tonight, except to say that it happened just a little bit at a time. Because that's the way that sin works in our lives. It's just one little lie at a time, one little justification at a time, one little rationalization. And those lies build up, and it can transform who you are. While I know that Satan has to sneak around to do his dirty work, I know that when God wants to change your life, it can happen like that. And that's what happened to me in the fall of 2009. 2009 had been a good year for me. That spring, I had been awarded Planned Parenthood's Employee of the Year award. You can hold your applause. I know you're all very proud of me. Thank you. And but I was excited. I had had a good year before 2008. I was working at Planned Parenthood, but also worked on Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. Who's upset that they're missing the debate tonight? Say, I'm not at all. I don't need that kind of high blood pressure in my life. So, anyway, I know you're all fans of Clinton, and don't be jealous. So anyway, but yeah, it had been a good year for me, and I'd gotten that award in April, and then in August, weird things happened in the summer, and then in August, I was in a budget meeting with my supervisor, and I was looking at my upcoming budget for the fiscal year, and I noticed that there was an error in one of the line items. I knew that we had an abortion quota, a certain number of abortions that we had to provide, that we had to sell to women. But I had never really thought about it before because we never had a hard time meeting our quota, so it wasn't ever something we discussed. But that year, for the upcoming fiscal year budget, I noticed that the abortion quota had doubled. And I thought, oh, that's a mistake. Because here at Planned Parenthood, we're about reducing the number of abortions. Right? That's what we said. That's what I said. That's what I said to the media. That's what I said to my friends, to my family. We're not there to sell abortions. We're there to reduce the number of abortions. We're there because we're all about prevention. But here it was. So I thought it was a mistake. So I said something out loud to my boss, and she looked at me and she started laughing. And she said, Abby, why would we reduce the number of abortions? That's how we make our money. I mean, you're looking at me like, duh. But I don't know. I've been blinded for so many years. I mean, I was shocked to hear this. And at the time, I wasn't sure if it was that the organization was changing, or if it was that now I was so high up in management, I was finally seeing what the organization had been about all along. And I realize now it was that. I also realize now that the reason I was awarded that Employee of the Year award is not because I was the best at remembering people's birthdays, or I brought the best bundt cake on Fridays or anything like that. I got that award because I was their very best salesperson. I could sell an abortion to anybody. I could have sold an abortion to just about every one of you in this room. And I didn't even see that I was doing it. So in September of that year, we had a visiting physician come in from out of town and just sort of explain the Planned Parenthood hierarchy. So at the top, the umbrella organization is Planned Parenthood Federation of America, PPFA. And they have doctors. They have different doctors that are employed by PPFA, contracted with PPFA. And they create all of these protocols for various things. And so those protocols are then passed down to the affiliates. There's about 80 affiliates across the country. And then those affiliates take those protocols and they disseminate them to all of their local clinics. And the affiliates run the clinics, and the affiliates are run by PPFA. Make sense? So what that means is that if you walked into St. Louis, Missouri for a first trimester abortion, it's going to be performed the same, with the same protocol, as an abortion performed at a Planned Parenthood in Tampa, Florida. Okay? All the protocols are the same. I only knew Planned Parenthood's protocol because I only worked for Planned Parenthood. I didn't know any other abortion provider. So the protocol, sort of a brief overview of the protocol for first trimester abortion at Planned Parenthood is this. Woman comes in, she gets some lab work done, she signs a stack of paperwork, we get her back for the procedure. Now, we wanted to sedate her as soon as we got her on the table. Why? Well, for a few reasons. One, because we were going to do an ultrasound, and we didn't want to take the chance that the woman would pop her head up and see what was on that ultrasound screen. Because, you see, the ultrasound exposes the lie of the abortion industry. So the ultrasound lets these women know that it is actually a unique individual human being with a beating heart, which is something that Planned Parenthood needs to deny in order to keep up their business. So that was one reason. Second reason was because the doctors don't like talking to the patients. So they wanted us to sedate them immediately so that the women wouldn't talk. So that when the doctor came in, they wouldn't be asking questions and they would just shut up. The third reason was because the sedation that we used, which is a combination of fentanyl and Versed, causes sort of an amnesic effect. And so the women generally won't remember what they heard. They won't remember the sounds. They won't remember the discomfort. They won't remember the doctor's face. They won't remember what took place in that room. So we want to get them sedated immediately. Then someone comes over, not the doctor, someone else, comes over, performs an ultrasound. Now, we performed an ultrasound for one reason, and that was to determine how far along the woman was in her pregnancy so that we knew how much to charge her for the abortion. Because there's a price difference between an abortion done at 9 weeks in one day and 10 weeks at one day. So we need to make sure we had the right price. And then the doctor would come in, and he would begin the procedure. The procedure starts by him dilating the woman's cervix using dilation rods to artificially dilate his cervix just large enough so that he can get an instrument called a cannula. The cannula is like a suction tube, looks like a straw. That's what's hooked up to the suction machine. And he takes that cannula and he inserts it into the woman's uterus, and he just blindly pokes around in the woman's uterus until he thinks he has enough blood and tissue in a glass jar. That glass jar goes into a lab called the POC lab. What does POC stand for? Products of conception. What's that? What's the product of conception? That's the baby, right? Because a baby inside of the abortion clinic. So we said POC or POC, or if the staff was feeling funny, they would say that it stood for parts of children. And inside that lab is a POC technician, and that person's job is to take everything in that glass jar, dump it into a glass baking dish, reassemble the parts of the baby. Why do we do that? Because if we left an arm or a leg or the head or a part of the spine inside the woman's uterus, she could develop a very serious infection that could be fatal to her. So once everything was accounted for, the POC technician would take all the parts, put it in a red biohazard Ziploc type bag, and put it in a freezer that was in the POC lab that the staff jokingly called the nursery. And once a week, a group, a biohazard medical waste company, a group like Stericycle, would come into our clinic. They would pick up all the bags of babies. They would take them to their facility where they're incinerated. That's how abortion takes place every day in the United States, over 3,000 times a day. And that was the only way I knew it to be performed. So we had this visiting physician come in, and he was telling me, I don't think this is going to surprise any of you, but he was telling me that, it's actually safer for the patient. if the doctor can see what he's doing while he's performing surgery on her. And I was like, well, yeah, that makes sense, right? Like if I was at the dentist to have a root canal and like my dentist rolled up on his stool with like a blindfold on, I'd be like, nah, I'm good. I'll live with it, you know? But that was the standard procedure for us. It was a blind procedure. It's no wonder we had so many uterine perforations, right, where they poke a hole right through the woman's uterus because they can't see what they're doing. So I went back to my boss and I said, look, you know, if this is safer for women, then why aren't we doing it? Why isn't this the standard protocol? Because here at Planned Parenthood, we're about keeping women safe. And she said, using an ultrasound during the actual abortion adds on about 3 minutes of time per patient. See, our goal inside of Planned Parenthood was to have a woman on the table, off the table, abortion complete in 5 minutes. So 3 minutes per patient when you're doing 40 to 50 abortions a day, and that adds up to a significant amount of time. Time is money for us. So, I don't know. I accepted that answer. And this doctor, though, he told me that if time presented, that he would show me what an ultrasound-guided abortion looked like. He thought that that would be a good learning experience for me. The day came. I was called back to assist in the procedure. My job during the abortion was to hold the ultrasound probe on the woman's abdomen so that the doctor would be able to, in his words, visualize his target. Just for clarification, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse, I'm not even a medical assistant, I don't have any sort of medical credentialing. I'm a licensed therapist, so if you're having a crummy day, we can talk about it, but if you need some sort of medical procedure, I'm really not your gal. But inside the abortion industry, they don't care. You just have to be willing and sit through about an hour-long in-house training program where you're usually trained by someone else who is a non-medical staff person. And once you go through that hour, then you're set loose to perform invasive medical procedures on women. I had gone through that training. I was qualified in their eyes, so I stood there doing the ultrasound. We found the baby was 13 weeks pregnant, 13 weeks along. At 13 weeks, are there arms and legs? Fingers and toes? Heartbeat? Brain waves? Internal organs? Yeah, everything's there. Everything's completely formed. Outside of the uterus, the baby's about this big, and we can even tell if it's a boy or a girl. So, admittedly, I felt a little apprehensive as I was looking at the screen because I realized that this really looked like a baby. I knew it wasn't because Planned Parenthood told me so. Now, I have a 9-year-old daughter. I've only been out of the industry 7 years. So I was pregnant with and had my daughter when I worked at Planned Parenthood. Now, when I was pregnant with Grace, she was a baby. See, that's the science of the pro-choice movement. A baby is a baby if it's wanted. A baby is tissue if it's unwanted. But yet they claim that we are the ones that are unscientific. And I knew one thing was for sure. I knew that no matter what I saw on that screen, I knew that this baby's fetus, POC, whatever you want to call it, was not going to feel anything. How did I know that? Because Planned Parenthood sent me a memo about it. The memo was entitled Answers to Tough Questions. Most frequently asked question I got from women having an abortion at Planned Parenthood was, will my baby feel this? They wanted to know. And we knew we had to have a very good answer to give back to them. So our scripted answer that we gave back, that I gave back thousands of times, was no, the fetus has no sensory development or does not feel anything until 28 weeks. I knew it was a lie. And these women, I give them that answer. They knew it was a lie too. Look, 60% of women that have abortions already have children at home. These women are not having abortions because they don't think it's a baby. They recognize that it's a baby. It's not that. They're having abortions because society has convinced them that if you don't have all the resources and support that you need, the best thing you can do, the most merciful thing that you can do for your unborn child is to kill it. We all knew it was a lie. But you have to believe the lie because the truth is far too uncomfortable. So I stood there looking at the screen. I watched the cannula, the suction tube. The suction wasn't yet turned on. I watched it go into the woman's uterus. I could see it up on the screen. I watched it go closer and closer to the side of this baby. And when it touched his side, he jumped. And he began flailing his arms and legs as if he was trying to run away from that abortion instrument. But there was nowhere for him to go. And once the doctor had everything in place, he asked the technician to turn on the suction machine, and he said, "Beam me up, Scotty." And the suction was turned on. I guess people make the assumption that what I saw next was the worst part, that seeing a child become dismembered in his mother's womb would be the worst part. That was bad, but I knew that was coming. That wasn't the worst. The worst part was that when I had the opportunity to do something, I just stood there. I did nothing. I remember wanting to sit this woman up and say, look what's happening to your baby. Make them stop. They're hurting him. But I didn't. I just stood there and I watched. I remember watching the screen, and once the screen went black, I knew that meant the abortion had been successful. I dropped the ultrasound probe. I remember looking down at my hands. They were just sort of hovering over this woman's belly where life had once been. I remember when I was pregnant with Grace, I would watch all of these YouTube videos about home birth, I think to freak myself out because I wasn't having a home birth, but and I remember, the woman would push the baby out and the midwife or whoever would take the baby and they would just plop that baby right on the mom's chest. I remember watching that and thinking, ew. And so I told my doctor at the time, I said, "Now look, when I have this baby, I'm going to need you to get it all cleaned off before you bring her over to me because I don't need any of that up here, And she was like, whatever. So then the baby came. And I remember, I remember that last push. Oh, that's the best feeling in the world. And I remember pushing her out. It was like in that moment, it was like my hands had magnets in them that were attracted to the goo on her body. I had to touch her, I had to feel her. I had to have her on my chest. I had to look at her face, I had to feel her breathing on me. I had to look in her eyes. I remember that so clearly. I mean, every birth and labor experience has been beautiful, but that first time, wow. And I remember looking at her and just thinking, oh my gosh, how did I create something so perfect? So I remember that moment just like it was yesterday. But that day, I remember looking down at my hands, and I realized that it was these hands they were one of the first to touch the body of my baby when she was born. And it was these hands that held her to my breast as she nursed. It was these hands that patted her little bottom when she needed comfort. It was these hands that cared for her, that helped to sustain her life. But on that day in the fall of 2009, it was these same hands that helped to end a life. Oh, how powerful our hands can be. How powerful our words can be. How powerful your life can be. I remember going back to my office that day, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who to talk to. There were two women standing outside of my clinic that were praying, and for 8 years, there have been people standing outside of my clinic praying. And I knew they were praying primarily praying for the women going in, but I knew they were praying for us too, for the workers. They told me they were. I believed them. So for the first time, really in 8 years, I was sitting in my office and I was just asking God, really praying. And asking God, God, who do I go to? Who can I go to right now for help? And I kept feeling like he was telling me to go to those people, to these pro-life people. And I thought, no, give me somebody else. Like anybody else. No, that's where I felt like I needed to go. So I ran out the back door. I got in my car. I could have walked to their office because it was conveniently located next door, but I thought that would look suspicious. So I got in my car and drove the 50 yards. And I walked in their back door. I sat on their couch, and I didn't know what to say. What do you say? Sorry? Sorry, in the past 8 years, I've participated in the deaths of about 20,000 children. Sorry about that. So that didn't seem like enough, but in the end, that's really all I could say. Because I recognize that nothing I could ever do could ever make up for the lives that were lost. And the good news was that I didn't have to make up for it. And I remember these people, they looked back at me, and they had every reason to look at me and say, well, that's fine, lady, but you owe us a big apology. Because I hadn't been like the friendly abortion clinic worker. But they didn't. They just looked back at me and they said, it's done. It's over. God has created in you a new heart. You are a new creation in Christ, and that's who we see sitting in front of us today. I left their office. I decided I would go ahead and put in my resignation. Don't worry, I gave him like a good 5 minutes notice. And that day I was, I told the pro-life group I was leaving, and so they had sent over a young man from their office to be on the sidewalk just to be sure I was able to leave without incident. So I was loading up all the stuff in my car, and I waved to that guy, and I said, I'll be in y'all's office tomorrow. And he said, okay. I got in my car, and I pulled out of that driveway for the last time, and I took a left. And that man, he didn't know I could see him or that I was looking or anything, but I remember watching him, and I saw him, he put his arms up in the air, and he fell to his knees. Because there had to be days where they looked at me and they said, she's she's never leaving. God, why do you have us praying for this woman? She's mean to us. She mocks us. She mocks our faith. She's never going to leave. It's never going to happen. And then one day it did. See, I'm standing in front of you tonight as the testament to the power of conversion. See, friends, no one is beyond the power of conversion because no one is beyond the power of Christ. And that's really what we're about. That's really what the pro-life movement should be about. That's what the Dakota Hope Clinic is about. See, it's not just about saving a baby. It's about converting a heart. It's about converting the heart of a woman who was scared in an unplanned pregnancy, unsure of what to do, feeling like she doesn't have the resources, feeling like she doesn't have the support, and looking at her and saying, you can do this. You can do this because we're going to be beside you to help along this journey. It's about that conversion of heart. It's about conversion of heart for politicians who maybe vote differently than we do. I would dare to say that the majority of us do not spend enough time in prayer, praying for pro-choice politicians, praying for our president. Sometimes it's hard, but prayer can break through the hardest of heart. Conversion of the men who are involved in the lives of these women. I believe that the primary antidote to abortion is fatherhood. It's dads, it's fathers. You know, they did a study, 74% of women that had abortions, they asked them, they said, who was the primary influencer in your life to have an abortion? 74% of them, guys, said the man involved. These men, they hold the key to a woman choosing life for her child. And so it is our job. That's why I'm so excited about this fatherhood initiative that Dakota Hope is working on, because it is our job to equip these men to be the fathers, to be the husbands that God has intended them to be. That's our job. It's our job to look these young men in the face and to say real men care about the women in their lives. Real men care about their babies, about their children. Now let me put my arm around you. Let's look in the Word of God. Let's find out how you can live up to your God-given potential and protect that baby. And I'm telling you, I speak at events all across the country. I'm so excited that Dakota Hope is providing STD testing and treatment. And I'll tell you why, because some of you are like, why do we do that? Well, I'll explain to you, because this is all about a business model for Planned Parenthood. Why does Planned Parenthood provide contraception to the masses? Because they really care about the abortion rate in your community? No, absolutely not. They provide contraception, particularly to young women, particularly contraception that has a high failure rate, to women in your communities, because they know that that young girl, I'm 36 years old and I have a hard time remembering to take a pill every day. A 13-year-old certainly will not remember. So they give her this type of contraception that is destined to fail. They know that 54% of women that have abortions were using contraception at the time that they got pregnant. So what that means, if you look in a waiting room, an abortion clinic waiting room, more than 50% of those women are contracepting and they're pregnant and they're there for an abortion. See, the solution is not birth control to this problem. The solution is self-control. But they know that birth control will fail, and when it does, because they were the primary point of contact, Marketing 101 tells us that they will go back to the place where they got that contraception. That's an opportunity for them to sell an abortion to a vulnerable woman. Why does Planned Parenthood provide STD testing? because they care about the gonorrhea and chlamydia rate in your community. Nope. They do it because they know that women who need STD testing are generally participating in more high-risk sexual behavior. And we know statistically that women who participate in high-risk sexual behavior are more likely to have what? An unplanned pregnancy. And because they've already had that first touch point experience with the abortion clinic, Marketing 101 tells us they will go back there. And that's an opportunity, again, for them to sell them an abortion. See, my goal is not just to make abortion illegal. Now, look, I work in the political movement. I work in politics. I love all of that. I love legislation. But that's not my goal. It's fine if we do that. But my goal is to make abortion unthinkable. And we do that by making sure that women never even have a reason to darken the door of an abortion facility. And that's exactly what Dakota Hope is doing. They're providing this information, they're providing this testing, they're providing this treatment to women so that they will come to them first. So that they'll never even have the opportunity to walk into an abortion clinic and be sold on an abortion. So that hopefully they'll be able to change that behavior so that the crisis pregnancy doesn't exist in the first place. That's how we end abortion. I mean, that's how we do it. So I'm so excited about what's happening in your community. I'm excited about what's happening in your state. You guys have one abortion clinic in the whole state? That's pretty cool. I don't know why it can't be North Dakota that's not the first abortion-free state in the U.S. Then I believe that will create a ripple effect across the country. Starting with the states around you, and all of a sudden there will be no abortion in your state or any of the states around you, and that will filter out to the rest of the United States. And we will see a day where abortion is illegal, but also unthinkable. That will happen through conversion of heart, converting one heart, one mind, one life at a time. That is the mission. That is the goal of Dakota Hope. And tonight, somebody's going to come up here and they're going to ask you for money. That's not a surprise to anybody, right? Everybody knew? Okay, good. Hopefully you're prepared. Bible says in Matthew, wherever your heart is, there wherever your treasure is, there your heart will be also. If I lived in this community, if this was my home, this is where my heart would be. This is where my treasure would be. I'm sure there are a lot of amazing things happening in Minot. I'm sure there are Minot. I'm sure there are a lot of really fantastic organizations out there, fantastic ministries, but I would bet my bottom dollar that not one of them is seeing lives changed and saved like Dakota Hope. See, it's not just about the physical life of these babies. See, let's pretend for a minute that in those 8 years I worked at Planned Parenthood, those people that stood out on the sidewalk, let's pretend that in that 8 years they didn't have one baby saved. Then that 8 years, the only fruit of their labor that they saw was me leaving the clinic. If you ask them, God, was that worth it? I mean, 8 years and all you get is Abby Johnson? Like, is that even worth it? I've never asked, but I'm like 99% sure they would say yes, because they may not have saved my physical life, but they helped to save my eternal life. That's what this is about. So I'm not asking you tonight to give generously. I'm actually asking you tonight to give sacrificially. To give like life depends on it. Because it does. Give until it feels good. Make that sacrifice. You don't have to have that expensive coffee. It's not that good anyway. You don't have to have that extra purse. I'm talking to myself right now. You don't have to have that fancy pair of shoes, again, to myself. See, you don't have to have those things. We can all find something that we can sacrifice to give to this ministry. And this ministry needs you to give in two ways tonight. I'm not asking you to do an either or. I'm asking you to do both. They need you to give a generous one-time donation tonight. This helps with emergency needs that come up in the clinic. But just like I think if I asked most of us who lives paycheck to paycheck, most of us would raise our hand. And that's how this organization works too. They need monthly donations from you guys. They need to know how much money is coming in every month so that they know how to budget their needs, just like we do. We budget because we know how much money is coming in, and it's the same for this organization. So I'm asking you to give both. I think most of us in this room could give at least $10 a month. I think all of us could. But some of you can give more. You know, at Planned Parenthood, on our budget, we had to net about $330 per abortion that was performed at our clinic, just in profit. Some of you here tonight can give $330 a month. Some of you can't. Some of you can give more. But all of us can give something. All of us can give sacrificially tonight. And that's what I'm asking you to do. I want you to leave here feeling encouraged. I mean, people say, oh, Abby, I don't know if we're ever going to win. They have Bill Gates and Bill Clinton and stacks of bills. But I'm here to tell you tonight, it doesn't matter how much money they have or who they have on their side, because we have the number one advocate on our side, and that's Jesus Christ. And we will win this battle. Thank you all so much, and God bless you.
Whew. That's a load off my mind. I was afraid I was going to have to ask for money for you here. So she's taking care of that for me. Because it says next year I'm supposed to say, hosts should distribute donation sheets to guests and explain options for giving. Thank you for doing that for me. I do appreciate it. I have one tip I want to offer to you, however. I think you got a lot of affirmation throughout your speech tonight. People were commenting, they were clapping, everything was great. You mentioned Texas A&M. Stand up one second. Say this, NDSU. That's all you have to say. She refused. All right, so talk to your hosts at your table, please, and your hosts will help you to figure out how to work the donation cards that are on your table, and we will ask you to do that right now for a few minutes. Thank you. All right, that was fun. If you're not done, please finish up as you finish up this evening. We are just about finished this evening. And I'm going to ask Pastor Ed to come up here. Ed Nugent is here from Our Redeemer's Lutheran Brethren Church, and he will lead us in the closing prayer this evening. Oh, there he is. He was hiding from me. Here he is.
I have the easy job. It's like the person calling for adjournment after a meeting. He's the most popular guy in the room. Will you join me for just a short moment as we are brought into God's presence again to offer up and thank him for all that he has done for us. Would you join me in prayer? Father God, I thank you. I thank you that you're a God of redemption. But you're not a God of second chances. You're a God of completion. That Christ has died for the sins of every abortion provider, of every mother, of every Christian who stood by and never said a word or did a thing. God, may that grace move us. May it move us to action. May it move us to love. May it move us to give generously. May it move us to stand by someone who is thinking of having an abortion, who has had an abortion and needs someone to cry with. May it move us to be with the mother who has chosen to keep her child. May it move us to help. May it move us to love, to offer support, to be there. God, you have provided, you have given us the means to do everything you would have us do in this world. So God, give us the will to use it for your honor, for your glory, and for our good. So God, I thank you. I thank you for Abby. I thank you for her story. I thank you that you have moved her and are continuing to move her. And Lord, bless us as you send us out from this place, fueled by the gospel of Jesus Christ. That you love the powerless, that you're there for the weak, that you're there for the mother who's expecting and doesn't know what to expect for the future. She feels powerless and alone. You're there for her. That you are there for the unborn. So God, give your people your heart for those very same people. And in Jesus' precious name we pray. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's all hope and pray for a successful year, another great year for Dakota Hope with all of your help. Thank you for being with us this evening, and be safe on your trip home. And before you say anything else, and I forget, Abby's in the back and she has books. If you would like to make a donation, a suggested donation, and get a book autographed, do that. And now you can clap and go home.